Hello, good afternoon. It's coming up to 2 p.m. on Monday the 26th of April and I'm stood over the little River Avon in South Gloucestershire near Tortwood. This evening I'm off on a wild camp. Behind me is my trusted caribou bike, all laden up for touring. I've just left Bath about 10 a.m. this morning. It took a while to warm up overnight and I've just ridden up on some really nice roads. Back that way is Tortworth, but behind me is Michael Wood. There's some fantastic bluebell displays I'm just going to go and have a look at. And anybody who's driven the South Gloucestershire section of the M5 will probably be familiar with Michael Wood Services, so it's named after this wood here. Let me show you these bluebells, they're stunning. Just a couple of hundred yards on from that bridge crossing the Little Avon, which is running all down there, you climb up through Michael Wood and the smell of garlic on that side is overpowering, but the bluebells up here are always stunning this time of the year. Hope I can do it justice with the camera. All up here until you crest the summit of a small hill is bluebells this time of the year. I came by this way on one of my early season DIY Audaxes recently and saw they were coming out. I thought another couple of weeks and they'll be spectacular, and they really are. Oh, the smell of the garlic and the sight of the bluebells is fantastic. After those long dark months of winter and the lockdown and the uncertainty about the future, this is just fantastic to just be out enjoying this again. You can hear the roar of the M5 in the distance, but you wouldn't think there's a motorway close to here because it's just so peaceful up through here. I love coming through here in the winter in the dark as well. Wow. A little bit about my plans. I'm heading up to do a riverside camp on what's called the Horseshoe bend of the River Severn, south of Gloucester. It's a little dead end road which looks like it leads nowhere, but it's an old drover's road. There's quite a bit of history associated there, so I'll tell you more when I get there. I've just emerged from the woods there and I'm crossing the busy M5, as you can probably hear and see, and there's Michael Wood Services over there. So this is all Michael Wood. I guess it's that side as well, but this is where the fantastic bluebell displays are. It's now 3:10 and I'm making my way northwards up the Vale of Berkeley. On my right hand side would be the A38 and the M5. On the left hand side, a mile or so, would be the River Severn. So I've got a bit of time on my hands, so I thought I'd just come along and chill at this pond. It's one of my favourite spots around here, so it's lovely and peaceful there. Lo and behold, right behind me you may hear there's some diggers there digging some sort of trench in the road. So let me give you an idea of what I'm up to this evening. This is a wild camp. I've been referring to it over several videos. I intended to do this in the winter, soon after Christmas. Because of the lockdown, I've had to delay it until now. In some ways, that's worked out quite well, because I've found out a fascinating fact recently. I'll let you know later on. So let me tell you where I'm heading. I'm heading northwards up to what they call the Horseshoe Bend. It's a meander on the River Severn just below Gloucester. I'll put a map of the route on the screen now. And I'll put a close-up of where I'm heading. It's that spit of land where the river bends. I'm heading right up to the coast where it stops. More about the destination when I get there, because it's quite scenic, and as I said, lots of points of interest which I hope you'll find interesting. A couple of things. On my last champing video I had big issues with the boil time for the Chinese copy of the Trangia, and I went home and thought about it, and I thought it's either the stove or it's me, and I never used to have problems like that in the past with the original Trangia, so I did a bit of online research and I think I made some schoolboy errors, so I brought that along with me tonight as well. I'm going to be doing most of my cooking on my trusty MSR Whisper Light, the really fast and powerful petrol stove. But I've brought the Chinese Trangia along. I'm going to boil some water up this evening and do my pudding in that. I've got a toffee pudding, I think. And as I said, I think I've discovered, well, 3 fixes actually. 2 of them were schoolboy errors on my part, and the third one was just I wasn't aware of it. But the great thing about the internet is if you're not sure of something, just outsource it to other people, and of course there's loads of wisdom out there. Anyway, more about that later on. Just to be clear about why I bought the Chinese copy of the Trangia stove, when I do my Fossway ride, one night is going to be bivvying, and I just want to take a very lightweight stove and jettison as much as possible. All the packets for the food will be disposable. You get the idea. I don't want to take a big bulky stove as I've got tonight, so that's the reason. This is the spot I'm relaxing at, so there's my bike. That's where I've just spoken to over there by the wall, and that's the big duck pond there. I love riding along here. You can see the hills of the Cotswolds emerging. Probably about another 7 or 8 miles north. It's only about 3:15 now. I'm in no hurry. Where I'm going to be camping, there's actually a bench there. I've Google Street Viewed it. I'm not sure whether that's going to be appropriate to camp there. It's a bit too close to a pub, but I may use that. But I've bought my chair and table along just in case I have to detour down a little bit, just to be a little bit more discreet with my camping. It's 5:05 and I've just arrived at my destination, the end of the road, Arlingham. This is the River Severn. That's Newnham over there. There's a road running along there. You may see a few cars just zooming up there. That's the A48. That is the old passage in. I'll tell you a bit more about what it's called that shortly. You can see there's the Severn Way footpath. That's heading south. And that would be heading north up towards Gloucester. I'm probably going to have to go along there a little bit, or down there a little bit, just to be a bit more discreet. Anyway, let's go and enjoy the late afternoon sun on that seat for the time being. Just wandered down to the seat, about 50 yards or so from the end of the road, the pub. And this really gives you an idea of the tidal aspect to it. You can see high tide, it comes right in here. Wow, it's gorgeous. That's all the Forest of Dean over there. That Gothic type church, that's what really made me want to come here and be camping somewhere looking at that. The road I've just ridden here along is very rural, and it's actually an ancient drover's road. And you sort of think, well, why would it suddenly stop here? Because there used to be an ancient causeway here. This was actually a crossing place between Arlingham and Newnham over there. And it was a causeway, quite muddy apparently, and it was quite treacherous. A lot of people lost their lives, but it was a causeway from ancient times, prehistoric times I'm told, until 1802. And you may be saying, 1802? That's a little bit precise, isn't it? Well, that's exactly what I thought too. On further examination, reading up, it seems there was a really bad storm in 1802 and it changed the course of the river, and all the mud banks and the causeway just was not usable after that. And so there used to be a ferry across here in the 1800s. I guess there was a demand for it after the causeway was washed away. But there was something else of interest, and I find this quite fascinating. I don't want to say too much because it's based on somebody else's research and I don't want to steal it, I want to share it. So I will put a link up in the top right hand corner of the Whitewicks explaining it. Paul and Rebecca really well. They're the people who did the research, and they're the people who told me about it. I mean, I had no idea until I saw their video recently. Complete coincidence. I wanted to come here and then that just popped up on my timeline a couple of months ago. They're both really good researchers, but they're fun as well. They make it interesting and a bit witty as well. They're always amusing to watch their videos, and they're very informative as well. As I said, it's about 6 or 7 minutes. It really is worth a watch. But basically, there used to be coal mining over in the Forest of Dean in South Wales in the late 1700s, 1800s, and an engineer built a tramway down from Cinderford, and it reached the coast here, and it actually required a tunnel through one of those hills over there. And then because that tunnel was successful, it was decided to try and tunnel underneath the River Severn. This was 80 years before the railway tunnel was even started, and apparently they got halfway across and it was breached. The workers only just escaped with their lives, and it happened to be on Friday the 13th of November 1811, I think, or 1812. And the backstory is the engineer, the contractor, a couple of years later opened his door one morning and was shot 5 times, and his wife was also shot once. Again, this is Paul and Rebecca's research, and they go into much more detail. Not only is this very, very spectacular and pleasant here, it's actually got quite a lot of interest. Find it fascinating. One day I'm going to go over there and have a look at that church. Wow. Just wandered along southwards, literally just 50 yards, and then there's a drop down onto the banks. You can tell this sand is really very, very soft, almost like quicksand. I wouldn't stray any further than this, but yeah, look at this. Wow. I've just walked along the coastal path, probably about less than a quarter of a mile, just to obscure myself from anybody in the pub. I'm going to set up camp here, right opposite the little harbour there. I'll go through the kit I've bought actually. I bought my F&E active chair, and what I noticed was the tent poles would fit in that bag nicely because there's quite a lot of room in there. So I really crunched my tent down, and I've bought my old tunnel front entrance tent. I can't think what it's called, I'll tell you when I set it up. I'm still going to use that despite buying that new tent just before Christmas for winter camping. So I've really been able to compress that down much, much smaller, probably about half the size of that. So I've got my trusty Hexped Sin Mat sleep mat. This time I bought my summer sleeping bag, Softy Merlin 3. It's a comfort down to 5, low down to 0. I don't think it's forecast to drop below about 3 tonight. And also a much lighter, I don't think it's silk, but a much lighter material sleeping bag liner, and my Xped pillow. So the first thing I'll probably do is get the chair set up actually. That's my tent set up. It's a Storm Shield, I can never remember what it's called. Bought it from Millets years ago. I really, really like it. If I could buy another one, I'd get one tomorrow. I think they've been discontinued. It's probably still got a few years left in it. All the zips are okay. It's just got a few holes in at the back where sheep have tried to chew through it. That's all set up then. I've got my seat set up. Got my ground sheet there to put everything on. I'll start getting things in the tent shortly, and then get changed in some cooler clothes. Crack open a beer, my seat. I've even got a table as well. It's now 6:20. I've got my meal started. Boiled some water with the whisper light. Boiled in some pasta, which I'll then drain off. Then I'm going to stir in a tin of chili con carne. Nothing fancy tonight. Then afterwards, my pudding. I'll get the Trangia copy out and boil some water, go through my mistakes I made, and then I'm just going to do an MRE toffee pudding. Got my first beer open, that's very welcome. The guy just walked along and said there's a Severn Bore tonight. Apparently it doesn't come over here, but it may be quite impressive as it comes up the river. Chili con carne in pasta, the Beck's beer on the banks of the River Severn. Had my main meal, it was very nice, chili con carne and pasta. Now it's time to prepare my pudding. I'm having a Wayfarer wet meal, it's sticky toffee pudding. So boil it in the bag for 8 minutes, leave it to stand for a minute or so, then just tear the perforations, eat it out the bag, and I'm going to try it in the billy can with the Chinese Trangia copy, and I'm hoping it's going to be quicker this time. Let me go through the lessons I've learnt from last time. I did a little bit of research, and everybody said you mustn't fill Trangias right up to the top. It needs air to breathe. I did that because my logic was fill it up as much as possible, then I only need to take a very small medicine bottle full of mess. That was flawed logic, so that was my mistake. I overfilled it. Secondly, I didn't realise what all these arms were for. If you look at it, it just needs a little bit of manipulation, a little bit of bending, and those arms hook underneath that rim there, and so it raises about an inch or so, or half an inch, and then that just makes the flame much closer to the pot. That was my two mistakes I made. And then reading on a forum, it said with these Trangia minis, unlike the originals where it comes in a self-contained unit, you really need a heat shield. Again, I'll emphasise, when I do the overnight bivvy in June on my Fosway ride, I want to jettison as much as possible. So I've just got an old baking tray from home. I think we did a roast lunch in this once. So I'm just going to bend this into a windshield, heat reflector, light it, and then we'll see how long it takes to boil tonight. There's the billy can, that's got half a litre of water in. It doesn't seem very full, it's about a third full, but as you immerse the wet mail, you get the displacement effect. I feel half a litre is all you need because that'll rise right to the top. So let's get the Trangia copy lit. I'm going to set the phone to a timer and I'll tell you exactly how long it takes to boil. I've just stopped the timer at 14 minutes 55 seconds, so quite a long time compared to the Whisper Light, but much quicker and more acceptable than last week at the church. Steam's coming out the spout. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's bubbling away. That's more like it. 15 minutes to boil, then the 8 minutes, and also there's quite a bit of fuel left as well. Last week I nearly depleted it. I'd say there's probably about a third left of what I bought. I wasn't convinced about this the first time at Westbury, but wow, tonight it tastes really good. I've changed my mind. This is as good as the chocolate pudding. That's the Severn Bore going up. Wow. I'm keeping my eye on it just in case I do need to very quickly retreat. I did notice a couple of guys out there in wetsuits. Maybe if I zoom in you may be able to see there's a couple of guys surfing it. This is a pure coincidence, me being here for this. I wasn't aware of it, so obviously I'm keeping my eye on it. If I need to withdraw, I'll withdraw very quickly. There's a microlight flying right overhead. Wow, look, the birds seem to know. I remember me and my friend Jeff, we parked up the van for 20 minutes or so and watched the solar eclipse back in 1999, I think, and we just were very aware of all the wildlife and the birds squealing and shrieking. They definitely knew something was happening. There's quite a big wave forming over there. You can really hear it more than see it, to be honest. The sun's just sinking down there. That's why there's a bore tonight. There's going to be a full moon rising right behind me shortly. I am quite aware that the tide's really coming in quite quick. As I said, I'm sort of keeping my eye on it in case I have to make a sudden dash. But it's just transformed from quite a placid looking, almost a stream, to, well, there's some pretty serious waves over there at the moment. It's now 8:10 and all the mud has been submerged. Keeping my eye on it, obviously. About 5 feet below me there's a bit of silt there. I imagine it comes up there sometimes. Not much evidence of silt up here, But the fact that there's like a levee there, a raised path, suggests that it might come up here sometimes. I've got the bike back about 50 yards. All my valuables are on the ground sheet, just I can get that back very, very quick if I had to.